And in this segment, I want to talk about family practices that help build the bond between the children in your family, however many there may be. And these are practices that we found over the years are really helpful. It may take you a while to get the regular practice going. Sometimes when there's an unusual event in the family, you'll get thrown off. But you'll notice that things get much more difficult when you can't do special time. And you'll be motivated to, get back into the special time groove. There was a mom of triplets once in one of the classes that I taught. And she had an amazing story, actually. She said that she herself was a triplet and that her mom had made a special time for each of the 3 children that she had every single week, where it was just them and her. And she said she treasured that time growing up, and that she now, with very small triplets, I think she had toddler triplets, she now figured out how to do special time with each of her triplets too. She said it really takes some doing, but I'm really dedicated to this. It meant so much to me as a child. So you want to get the help you need, do the scheming you need to do, help your children get, if you can't figure out alone time with one child, then enlist the other child to also pay attention or do what this child wants, so that children are cooperating with one another to do some little bit, a little bit different version of special time, but get it when you can. Your child will thrive because of it. I think the second practice that we find really helpful is affection games. So I think I've talked about a lot of them, but the kind of game where you and a friend or you and your partner are going, I want him. No, you can't have him. I want him. And you're pulling children back and forth, wanting, wanting, wanting. And it's lighthearted, it's fun, and it makes children feel great. Any kind of affection game, any kind of vigorous snuggle when they're getting a little squirrely, or trying to stir up trouble with another sibling, really helps keep the tone light in your family. It helps keep the laughter rolling, and it helps keep children more inclined to be on each other's side. Roughhousing is very, very helpful. It's a form of play listening where you are generally the one being gotten. And the mom I just talked about in segment 1 also said that when she was assuming, she did a lot of roughhousing with her older son. It was a really good way for him to, let off aggressive steam, and they really liked playing this way. Lots of laughter. They had a good wrestling relationship, and so she said they have a practice of every night after dinner they do a few minutes at least of wrestling. But when the baby came, of course, this was interrupted. There wasn't much time for it. And she was afraid to get back to it because, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with the baby? But she said by the time the baby was 6 months old, she said roughhousing was going just great. It's like her older son would bonk her over and they'd be wrestling on the floor, and the baby would crawl over and plunk himself on her tummy. And the older one would, it's like the older one would make room for the younger one to, get into the roughhousing, and they would help each other figure out, how the little one could have the upper hand. And she said it worked great. She said the older one was really thoughtful of the younger one most of the time, and found ways to include his brother. So it's, you would be surprised how sturdy little ones are. And you also need to know that in roughhousing, I think I've mentioned this before, but often as the roughhousing progresses, somebody gets hurt, somebody gets bonked. There's a foot that goes in a direction nobody expected and it lands on somebody's cheek. And it really enhances each child's resilience to stop and pay attention and not assume that this is a bad thing to happen. Yes, you have smaller children and bigger children. Yes, you have children who are really confident physically and children who are far less adept because they haven't been around as long and they're not as big. But as you help children play together in this way, where there's laughter and then, someone gets hurt and there are tears, as you pay attention, as you give the child who needs the attention time to recover from what just happened to them, their confidence builds, their ability to use their body well builds, because they learn, from every time that it didn't go well. You don't have to teach anything. Experience is really, it's a very efficient teacher. You just have to help the hurt roll off so that the mind can work again and absorb the lesson. Getting days out, you know, a whole day with mom or a whole day with dad once in a while really helps children relax in a way that sometimes they can't around their sibling. You know, the tension that's there that hasn't been resolved yet has a chance to, you know, pull back like fog going back over the mountain once the sun comes out. And you get to really be with your child without them being defensive in any way. This is very helpful for them. So seeing if you can arrange, you know, extended periods of time with one child at a time really gives children a chance to breathe and show you who they are without their sibling around. And family meetings are very helpful, sort of little appreciation times where I know several families in which there are sibling difficulties that have found a time every night where each person says what they liked about the day and maybe what was hard about the day. And it gets children a little bit used to listening to one another, and children sometimes have thoughtful things to say about one another, surprisingly enough, surprising you and the sibling that they're usually riding. And family meetings where once a week you get together and each person gets to say something about how they like what's going on in the family and something that could improve. And everybody gets listened to. It's not just the parents' ideas, the children go first. So that there's a place to be heard and a place where thinking is expected, you know, not gripes, but thinking is expected, also helps bring children out of, you know, the way that upsets kind of, you know, roil in their minds all the time. It sort of makes a different kind of an environment for their thinking and their input in the family to be heard and to be used. So these are the kinds of practices that we find really, really useful for helping children bond. I hope that's helpful to you.